London twisting this. Now I'm the elevate, taking it up to higher heights. We're being so tight, they're gonna grip you like an iron vice. Yes, I illuminate. Can you feel the flames lighting up the night sky?
Welcome everyone to tonight's LCTV production of the Tiger Football Postseason Wrap-Up. I'm Mike Fontanella, and I'm joined here with head coach Mike Lynn, Alex McLaughlin, Chris Bales, Matt Jackson, and Travis Bassett, all members of the state championship football team. We're going to talk a little bit about the season, guys. We'll talk about some of the games and what the experience was like for you guys as you walk down that road together. Mike, as the coach, and even you guys, setting goals is always part of the preseason preparation for a team, and usually it's things like qualifying for the playoffs or contending for the league title, but it's not typically something as lofty as winning a state title. How cognizant were you guys as coaches and players that was a real goal for you guys, and how did it affect the way you prepared for the season?
When these guys were doing their captain-elect speeches last fall, several of them mentioned want to guide the team to a state championship next year in our senior year. So I guess at that point I knew that in their minds they thought it was possible. In our minds as a coaching staff, we were also thinking, wouldn't that be something in the first year of state championships to be one of the teams that gets to play in Gillette? And then preseason, I felt real good about our chances, and then as the season progressed, certainly things started to be it heated up a little bit as far as we kept winning and knew that we were getting one step closer every week.
Right. How about you guys? Did it change the way you approached the off season in terms of weightlifting or training, or did you guys talk about it, or did you just kind of tiptoe around it?
I think we always train hard and practice hard. I think this year we had an idea of what we were capable of if we executed to the best of our abilities. So I think that's kind of how it all fell into place.
Yeah. All right. Mike, the first game of the year turned out to have huge implications. You guys ended up defeating West Boylston, who was the reigning Central Mass Super Bowl champion under the old format, and they're a key mid-watch rival. You guys ended up winning 40-34, and what turned out to be a pretty wild shootout. It was a fast game. It turned out to be a key win in terms of West Boylston ran the board before losing in the playoffs, and Littleton ended up getting big bonus points from every West Boylston win in the way the playoff format worked. It also gave you guys a real step up on the league title. Did you realize at the time, given that was the first game of the year, how big a game that was going to be and how tough an opponent they would be?
When I started going through their depth charts, what they had coming back this year, I had a pretty good feeling that was going to be a tough game for us. I don't think we were firing on all cylinders yet at that point. Offensively, we were still figuring out a few things. I think by the end of the season, we were certainly offensively and defensively, we're a much better team. At that point, we were still progressing. But certainly that West Boylston game, I actually just rewatched that game last week, and that certainly was one that we were fortunate to get out of there 40-34 with a win, 74 points scored in a high school football game. And a lot of people were saying, geez, that was a close game. We were expecting that. And we knew we were in for a game, yes.
All right. The next big game was the road game versus St. Bernard's. At the time, St. B's was also undefeated. You guys were too. And I think they even might have been a little ahead of you guys in the power rankings at the time, because I think at the time their strength of schedule was a little bit better in terms of the teams they had beaten. It was a really high-scoring game, as most of your guys' games were. The final score was 52-44, but you guys were down 22-6 after the first quarter, and you went on a 40-0 run and held on for another win. Alex, you had a big game that night. You went for over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, threw for another 100-plus yards and a TD in that game. As players, did you have a sense of how important that game was, and did that push you to another level when you were trailing early in the game?
I think that going into the game, it was two 4-0 teams. I mean, every time you get two undefeated teams butting heads, it's going to be a good game, no matter who they played or who we've played. But every time we go to that field, we always start slow. I don't know what it is with the field, but once our defense picked it up and got a stop, our offense kind of got moving. And I mean, once we scored those 40 unanswered, we had a good feeling about the game.
Yeah, great. You guys ended up, you got the #1 seed in the playoff bracket, which meant home game all the way through the districts, which was great for the community. It meant 3 extra home games during the season, and obviously the turnout was better as you guys got through the playoffs. You took care of business against Bay Path in the rematch against St. Bees, and that led you to the Blackstone Valley game, which was the title game for the Central Mass District Championship. And it looked like, if you were watching the standings all year, it kind of looked like a 3-way race between Littleton, West Boylston, and Blackstone Valley, and that's what it turned out to be. You've had some really good regular season games against Blackstone Valley the last couple of years, kind of resulted in losses, but they were great games. How did you feel about the championship game, both as coaches and players, getting ready for those guys, because they were definitely on the horizon all year long?
Yeah, that was a game that we certainly had some concerns about. Physical size, we didn't match up very well with that team. But athleticism-wise, I think when we finally played the game, we did have more team speed than them. We certainly made all the plays we needed that night. That's a game, again, if you rewatch that game, we played about as good of a game as we did all year. So these guys can probably give you more input.
Yeah, I mean, BVT at the time was averaging like 33 points a game. You guys were averaging 41, and they were undefeated. And I remember talking in the pregame stand-up that we do before the game. We thought we were going to be in for a big offensive shootout. It actually turned out to be 28-8, and the defense definitely stepped up. I thought by far the best game of the year. Matty, what did you think out there? I mean, you had Alex playing full-time for, I think, the first time. Maybe the second game was he played full-time at safety. Did you guys feel like you could put that kind of effort up?
Well, yeah, we were playing good D the games before, so we were confident coming into that game that we could shut them down. And Alex came in, and that completed the D and just helped us allow 8 points.
All right. Chris, Coach talked about how BVT was definitely bigger up front than you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
But you guys basically dominated them. I mean, there was 370 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. How did the offensive line that you were a part of, how did you approach the size difference, and how were you able to be so effective?
Well, I mean, we knew they were definitely going to be bigger than us. And Coach Ferrante is always telling us BIG doesn't spell tough. So, I mean, we just went into that game with a good mental, positive attitude, and I don't know, we just went at it.
All right. Then you guys had a kind of an easy win against sort of an undermanned Turners Falls teams in the semifinals out of Western Mass, and you punched your ticket to Foxborough. But you still had to deal with air on Thanksgiving. There was a league title on the line. How hard was it to figure out as a coach how you're going to approach that game? I mean, that's kind of the way this format, everybody talked about at the time, was a great idea to have a real state championship format, but you still had to negotiate those Thanksgiving Day games.
Yeah, I think that was a stressful preparation week. And Trav and Alex will attest to that as well. We had a lot of dialogue that week as I think all 12 teams that were playing the state championship. After reading the Globe and the Herald, there was a lot of dialogue in schools as to how you approach this, how meaningful is the game, what would you do, or what kind of regrets would you have if you lost a key player in that Thanksgiving game, which essentially is an exhibition game at this point for teams that are going on to the state championship. We had a definite plan. We were fortunate that our plan worked out. Our plan was to come out fast, play fast, put the ball in the air to try and make a less physical game. We did that, led to 3 quick scores in the first quarter. And we then removed Alex and Travis, and then we started getting other kids out. As I recall, Peter Murphy was the game MVP for us that day. He had a great game, and I was happy to see Pete really be maybe the focal point of the offense on that game. But yeah, we got that done. We're fortunate to get it behind us and move on.
Yeah, I think it was a tribute to your death. Elijah Pyram, a junior tailback who didn't get a lot of snaps on offense just because of how deep you guys were and how talented the seniors were, also had a great game, and I think it was a nice, some of the other guys that got in, underclassmen who are going to be part of the team next year, was a nice lead-in for what we can expect for next year.
Yeah, Elijah is a guy who unfortunately has had to play behind Travis and Pete Murphy for this year and last year, and that's tough to be behind those guys. He was an injury away from being the next guy in, but he got a lot of playing time in the Turners Falls game, a lot in the Ayers Shirley game. It's a good preview of what we can expect from him next year, and in that way, those games were positive for us.
Right. Now, you had so you got done on Thanksgiving Day, and then the state championship game was a full 10 days away after that. So talk about what it felt like to know you were going, and I know it was a big week in terms of the community really got behind you guys. There was some extra events, spaghetti dinners, and there was talk about how to get down to Foxborough. and preparing for that. It was an early morning down there. What did it feel like getting up, building up for that week, knowing that you were one of the last 12 teams playing football in Massachusetts this year?
I mean, it was an unbelievable feeling, first of all. I mean, there was like a bunch of preparation that we had to get ready for. Film, we watched film probably 3 or 4 times that week. I know I watched film on the weekend too. I'm sure Coach and all of them did. And then the pasta parties and stuff during that week, just like another way to unify us even more before the game. Obviously, I think we would have wanted to play the game sooner because we were so pumped for it, but I think holding back off of that gave us a little more, like, want to hit another team, so
Right.
that definitely helped us out.
How was Friday night trying to sleep? I mean, you guys you got to the high school, what, 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
5 to 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Did you sleep at all, or?
I didn't get any sleep.
No?
I actually crushed my spaghetti and passed out as soon as I got home.
Now, do you think it was preferable? You guys had the first game. There were 6 games that day. Do you think it was a benefit to have that first game rather than have to sit around even longer and wait to get going? I mean, albeit having to be at the school by 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, reflecting on it, the coaching staff, I think we all felt like in the end, we were fortunate to have that first time slot because no one was going to sleep all that well that night anyways. I think I was up at 3:30 in the morning and I was ready to go. So by the time we kicked off at 9 a.m., it felt like it was probably 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then all the festivities after the game gave us more time for that,
Right.
to celebrate. At Gillette, and then on the bus ride home, and then, you know, all the things that were planned for us when we got back. We've made, so obviously in the award ceremony, but Denise Moniz was instrumental in pulling together that, the parade that we had, which was something I'll never forget. And then the parents, Maddie's mother had pulled together a, what do we call that? Billiards club. It was
Shindig?
A shindig. A shindig
Good word.
for parents and kids, and it was just a tremendous night, a tremendous day. And, you know, obviously I think we're going to probably, the game itself was an amazing experience. I was glad when it was over, but, you know, not to highlight one person, but I mean, Travis Bassett, I mean, people were chasing for autographs that day and that
Well,
night.
that actually leads me to the next question. So, Travis, you know, you obviously had a dominant game. You had over 250 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns in the championship game. You know, can you describe how it felt to be on that particular stage? I mean, you've had a great year, and all you guys had a great year, and there was some tremendous statistics that were put up. It was such a great, fun team to watch for the last 2 years. But on that particular stage, and when did you know you were really doing something special, both individually and as a team?
I mean, it was an unreal day for me, but I couldn't have done it without the offensive line. First of all, they opened up some huge holes if you saw any of the highlights. So, I mean, I have to give credit to them. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, again, Chris, you know, the offensive line did turn out to be dominant again. You know, you guys had over 250 yards rushing in the first half in the offense, playing in the spread formation, which is what you guys basically used all year long. Yeah. But then in the second half, you guys switched gears and you went back to the double wing, what you guys call the hammer, and you ran up another 200 yards of offense, playing a totally different style of football. How hard was it to switch up like that?
Well, it wasn't too hard. I mean, we were pretty used to doing that already throughout the season. And during practice, we run through both sets pretty frequently, so it wasn't that hard to switch it up.
Yeah. Did you come out of the locker room thinking that was the way you wanted to go, or?
Well, we touched upon that earlier in the show, that the West Boylston game in the early part of the season, I don't think I had as clear of a picture as our game plan as in the end of the season, certainly in the playoffs. We definitely, by the end of the season, by the playoffs, we had a formula for winning games. And in the beginning of the season, we were still, our 2-point conversion game was still basically spread. We weren't working the double wing. To be honest with you, we'd kind of put it to the side, probably too much. And there was a definitive day, we weren't doing so hot on our 2-point conversion game. And I came into practice and said, we're going to start working a lot more double wing. That's what we're going to do for 2-point conversions. And then it also turned into our step on the neck offense, right? Where, we think that the game is in our control, and we want to kill the clock and slow the game down. So it was the contrast of the two offenses. We have a quarterback who can execute both offenses to near perfection. Again, the line was doing both. The spread game, the thing that people don't understand probably is the run game and spread is just a kind of an expanded version of what we do in double wing. We're still running power, counter, jet. a lot of the same run schemes with some minor changes. But the state championship, I think, was perfect game plan for us. We got up, we came out in double wing. Double wing was good for us. We never left it in the second half. And, we chewed up the clock and were still able to score points.
I remember talking to Carlo Ferrante afterwards, and he said he thought that you guys really caught Cohasset by surprise. They'd probably really spent the bulk of their preparation trying to scheme against the spread. And when you ran that double wing, they weren't really prepared for it. And you could hear on the Comcast telecast, which is good, not quite as good as the LCT telecast, but nonetheless, you really caught those guys by surprise too. They had no idea what that looked like, and they were like, what is that formation? Look at all those guys on the box. And you could hear Gresh say, yeah, but boy, if they get past that first line of defense, there's nobody behind them. And then I think 2 plays later, you popped one like 63 yards, Travis, and it just, there was nobody between you and the goal line.
Yeah, the double wing, why we can do what we're doing with the two offenses, and we'll just continue doing this, is that our youth programs are instrumental in getting the kids, and these guys played in Westford, but we had the double wing over there through Coach Wickham and Coach Ferrante, brought it over there. And these guys had so much experience. I mean, Travis has probably run superpower, I don't even know, 500 times in game. Who knows how many times these kids have run superpower and these different plays that we run on a double wing. And now the Littleton kids playing Littleton youth football are running that as a base offense too. It's a great youth offense because it's physical and it's a great way for kids to learn football. And then we take it to the next step with the spread, but it certainly causes some problems. And, it was certainly good for us in many games. As you think about I think a game breaker in the St. Bernard's?
Yeah.
St. Bernard's, Alex had an interception on the goal line, and we were literally on the goal line, had to get out of there. We ran a power to Pete, who got us about 4 or 5 yards. And the next play was this play, because we have a quarterback who can run. An understatement, but we have a quarterback who can really run. We started running with our rocket motion, which kind of brings the defense out to the flank. We'd run this little superpower with the quarterback. Again, same play for the line, and Alex just pops out of there. I think that was like a 95-yard touchdown run with seconds left on the clock. It really opened up that game.
Mike, talk a little bit about, you talked about these guys playing together in youth football and stuff. What's it been like coaching these guys over the past several years, and especially when you came to realize what they were truly capable of?
We certainly have, it's just a team that unity, I think, was unparalleled. I don't think I've ever had a more enjoyable year with a group of people. The other coaches would say the same thing, that just the senior class, the chemistry between these kids is incredible. And, I think they'll always look back on this year as probably the best, maybe one of the best, if not the best year of their young lives. It was pretty tremendous. And now these kids are playing basketball, and, we have high hopes for our baseball and lacrosse seasons with these same kids. But, a special group of athletes. We didn't have a lot of depth, but we were very fortunate to stay healthy. Our offensive line, we're not a big offensive line, but we execute. Sean Green has done a great job with those kids. And, not to highlight individuals again, but we have 2 guys who I think were faster and better athletes than other teams' one best guy.
Right.
So we're running an option game, and if like the state championship, the read for Alex most of the time when the plays are running was give to Trav, and Trav was just in the zone that day. I've watched that game multiple times, and he was seeing things. He was running faster and cutting better than I think he ever has. He loves the turf. And then there's other games where Alex had 200-something yards. Again, the offensive line's doing their job. Everybody's doing their job. Matty's doing his job, and Pete and everybody. But we had breakaway speed. We had big play potential, and it makes things a lot easier when you can, score in 3 plays as opposed to 8 or 9 plays.
And that's what it was like all year. It was exhausting to broadcast the games. It was just so fast. Yeah. You talked about you were pretty fortunate. You didn't have a lot of depth, but you were pretty healthy all year long. Although, frankly, my favorite part of that Saturday was Brad Magnuson not only getting back on the field because he had missed a couple games with not a life-threatening thing, but an emergency surgery that kept him out of a couple of playoff games. And it wasn't like he made a token appearance. I mean, he played. He had a bunch of tackles. He made a tremendous reception in the first quarter that set up another touchdown for you guys. What was it like for you guys to see him come out there and play with you?
It was a good feeling. We've been playing with him all our lives, and to see him go down like that in that time of the year, it was it wasn't good for us because he was our starting wide receiver, starting defensive end. So it was hard to fill his shoes in those 2 games that he missed. But luckily we got to the state championship and he was able to play.
The other thing that we talked about a little bit, which I thought was funny on the telecast, was how much mustard did you guys go through in those last few games? I mean, you talk about the lack of depth, Mike, and you know, guys are playing both ways, which, you know, small town high school football, that's great football. That's just such a fun way to play. You know you're going to be going out there on both sides of the ball, but it's exhausting. So how does the whole mustard thing work?
No idea.
I mean, yeah, I only had
Is
it
it a
once.
placebo? Does it really work?
Yeah, I've taken it
actually
like
does.
4 times and it's worked. Kicks in right away.
It's not in very good shape.
That's the coaching staff's fault. How is it easy to get down there? I mean, do some guys do they not like mustard and they have to do it anyway?
Yeah.
Well, I hate mustard, but I wanted to get back out on the field, so you just have to force it down somehow.
Yeah, Matty likes spicy brown. He likes honey mustard. He likes regular French's, yellow. Dalesy, I'm not sure what flavor you like, but
I actually do love mustard. I mean, if we're at a restaurant like that one time and the food was taking too long, I just ate the mustard.
Did you ever think like maybe a couple hot dogs or kielbasa on the sideline might help too? Or that too much? Guys, you played a lot of ball together, you know, not just football. And, you know, again, in Littleton, small town, guys get to play multiple sports, you know, not just in school, but, you know, growing up and stuff. So you guys have been together since you were little guys. To cap it off with something like this has to be rewarding, but can you try to tell us just how much it means to have gone through this together since youth sports?
It's an undescribable feeling because these guys right here, they're my brothers basically. I've been playing sports with them ever since I can remember. Won a lot of games, a lot of championships in baseball, basketball, so it was a great feeling being able to end my high school football career with them by my side.
It was definitely cool. I mean, you normally in high school football, for a small town, it's not that different, but there's a group of kids that stay together. I mean, we played JV together, and then as soon as we hit sophomore year, we were all, subbed in on varsity. So, I mean, starting when you're 8 years old and then going all the way through senior year is definitely cool, and I think that's definitely a huge part of our success.
Yeah, what do you think, Matt? How was it playing with these guys? Was it?
It was amazing. We've always been playing together, and finally we got to the top senior year. Felt great
Unreal.
with all these buddies.
When you guys look at the trophy, I mean, are you thinking about, gee, what a cool trophy, or is it more along the lines of it's just a trigger to think about the road you guys walked down together? I know when we've had success with the basketball program, we've always tried to make them understand that, winning the championship and looking at the trophy really is just hopefully a way to think about what you did together. That's the big thing. So have you guys taken a look at that piece of hardware? Do you walk through it every day in the hallway and take a little peek at it?
I mean, it's still in your office, right?
It's actually still in my office. It's going to be moving to the trophy. I've had it in my office in anticipation of our big award ceremony. I know I wanted to have it on display, and I have to. We've won so many MIA trophies this fall. I have to move things around in that case. Field hockey obviously brought one home, and we brought home two, and so it was a great fall for us. But I think you touched upon an important message that. These are truly special occurrences, what we experienced this year, and I don't know if I'll ever be there again in my career. I'm thankful that I was there with these guys this fall, but it's about the journey, and these guys hear me say this all the time. You don't know how it's going to go. You hope that you stay injury-free and you live up to your potential, but it's about the journey. It can't be about championships at high school level, but every now and then stars align and things really come together. And for us, this was, I'll never forget it.
How surprising was it when you got off the bus and got on saw the truck, and did it take you a few minutes to figure out exactly what was about to happen?
I mean, that was sweet. I mean, I don't know, the whole long bed construction to make them, able for us to stand on, that was surprising. But I mean, we got police escorts after our first playoff win, so we kind of I had a thought at least that maybe something was going on, but especially when the police cruiser picked us up on the side of the highway, that was kind of a hint. But no, I mean, that was unbelievable. That was really cool. I mean, out of anything, that's one of definitely the things that I'm going to remember the most.
I mean, as someone who got to participate sort of on the periphery of it, and it was a tremendous group of guys to watch. It was so entertaining. It was so fast. You guys always look like you're having a good time. Watching the coaching staff, navigate, with these guys and think about, you made a big shift. You had success in the past several years prior to these guys being the upperclassmen, but you kind of change it up with these guys, and it was a lot of fun to watch, and I think the community really enjoyed it. They were supportive. I thought the day at Foxborough was tremendous, the way they filled that section of the stadium. They were on their feet. Did you guys hear that? Like, there were times when, even before the play started, they kind of had a sense that this is a big down, and they were up there making noise. Did you guys hear that and then get a sense of that?
I mean, kind of hard to hear on the field, but there was some times during the game when a big play happened, you could hear them roaring. So.
And that normally doesn't happen. Normally when you're in the field, it's just nothing. You don't hear anything. But
Right.
they were loud. I mean, they were definitely louder than Cohasset, which was big. I mean, you looked up. I seen a couple pictures from our sideline. You look up, and there's not even an empty seat. So
Right.
it was pretty cool. Sure.
Excellent. Any closing thoughts, Coach, as you finish out this run with these guys?
It's I think we stated it that it was a special season with a special group of kids, and I think we're all thankful for the journey that we just went on, and we'd relive it in a moment, but unfortunately, this is probably our last
Hurrah.
hurrah
The
right
last
here. I think
accolades.
this is it. So, this in the award ceremony, I think that caps it.
Well, you look at the Littleton Hall of Fame. They might take a look at this season at some point, and maybe some of the guys who were a part of it.
Well, we still got to get our rings, too. So.
Yeah, rings are still a work in progress, but coming.
Are you going to actually wear that, or are you thinking
Oh,
more
yeah.
like put it in a little glass box and put it on the bureau?
I mean, depending on what happens for me, for football-wise, I'll be wearing it until I'm forced to take it off, probably. Maybe not in the shower, I guess.
All right,
Maybe.
excellent. All right, anything else, guys?
Matt, closing thoughts?
Great season.
Great call.
All right, guys, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. It was a great season. It was very enjoyable. LCTV definitely enjoyed being a part of it. We look forward to next year, and we'll see what the next steps are. So thanks for joining us, everybody, and hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you at the next, I think there's some hockey games coming up. We'll see you at the next hockey games that are on LCTV.
Next level. Hey, you know I'm the bomb. Yeah, that's why you sounded the alarm, right?